Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. So right off the bat, I actually think this is probably one of the best comic book movies of all time. You're probably thinking, well, this is just the fanboy hype kind of talking. But trust me, I got some negatives on this thing, and I'm about to tell you this right here, right now. I think the problem with Man of Steel that this movie actually doesn't have is that Christopher Nolan is finally gone. Man of Steel kind of had Nolan hovering over it, and he kind of wanted that very ground and kind of almost boring, close to boring, take on Superman to the point where it just had to be realistic, right? Superman's a very fantastical character. He's a god. Make a little bit of a fantasy. And I think this movie actually does a lot more better than Man of Steel particularly. It embraced the comic book world just in general. This is a very comic booky movie to the point where you're going to see a lot of things that be like, I can't believe they actually put that in there. I can't believe he actually just did that. I can't believe he actually just said that. And then you're going to be giddy and your jaw is just going to fucking drop. And you're actually going to be very excited. Now, some things that kind of are taken from the comic book are put in here, and they don't necessarily work completely, but they are still fucking fun to see, especially if you're a fan. Now, granted, there are some CGI scenes, and the action scenes are fantastic, man. I mean, all across the board, they're really fun and brutal and kind of badass, and they have a very nice dark tone. And they weren't lying about that bullshit, right? They were legit serious. This has a very clear-cut tone, right? Some things that, as I said, the actions are really great in the score, man. Junkie XL and fucking Hans Zimmer knocked this shit out the park once again. They know how to do this shit. Now, Henry Cavill, Gal Gadot, let's talk about these performances, right? Henry Cavill does a really good job. Now, sometimes he does kind of come across a little wooden. Maybe it's because the way he kind of delivers a line. Maybe it's the dialogue. Who knows? But he does kind of come across a little bit as wooden. Gal Gadot is Wonder Woman. She actually does a really good job here. Now, I think she's going to impress a lot of people, quite frankly. But she also kind of suffers from a couple of problems where her acting either is a little bit hit or miss, but she hits more than she misses, and sometimes her acting can be a little bit wooden just in general. The dialogue in here definitely feels more like a comic book of sorts, but not to the point where it ever feels a little bit hokey or campy or whatever. It feels very realistic, the way they're trying to sell the dialogue and the way they're trying to sell the elements of a comic book world given a real world approach, right? I think that actually really did work out well. Now, Jesse Eisenberg actually does a very good job at being Lex Luthor, and he actually does a very interesting take that you probably wouldn't have expected compared to the other two, Lex Luthor, the greatest criminal mastermind, or like Kevin Spacey shit. He actually does a really good job of trying to twist the character around a little bit and actually add a little bit something to him. Now, granted, he does kind of feel a little bit silly at times, but when he does kind of go into that Lex Luthor mode, he definitely feels like a very force. Like he feels like a force in his own way. Now, like I said, I think this movie sometimes can have a little bit of a pacing issue. I think maybe sometimes it goes a little bit fast, and then maybe it kind of goes a little bit slow, and then maybe it drags a bit. But it's nothing that really is going to like bother you too much. And some characters kind of get a little bit shafted. They don't really do too much. Particularly Lois Lane, she doesn't really do too much. But then again, it's Batman v Superman. It's not Batman v Superman with Lois. That's just the whole game. But overall, look, Batman himself, Ben Affleck, he's the key to this thing right here, right now, right? Because we needed him to succeed. Otherwise, we're all going to fucking hate this movie, right? But he actually succeeds, right? The biggest compliment you can actually give Ben Affleck is that he is the Arkham Batman, right? He's moving like a cat. This guy is fucking fast. He's on a move. He's brutal. He's angry. And he's fucking pissed. Just in general. Now, overall, I think he actually does a really great job. And Terrio and Snyder, you mix Terrio's good script with Snyder's fucking world vision of what this universe is supposed to be, and you got yourself a really fantastic fucking comic book film. Now, granted, as a film, some people may see some flaws with it, but I think as a comic book movie, you just kind of have to accept what it kind of is, and it's a very fantastical movie, and it really does deliver as to what you kind of expected. Batman, Superman, colliding, and fucking opening the door for a big-ass universe. And I think that's what it actually does very well. Now, I think the problem with Man of Steel was that it didn't really open too many doors to the big universe. It only opened up a couple of cracks. I think this definitely opens up like a whole bunch of doors, and they are ready to go full force, and I'm excited to see where they kind of take this thing. Now, overall, I think that I really did enjoy this movie, and I had a fucking blast with this thing, finally seeing the two heroes collide. And trust me, it's a big epic moment when they fucking hit, and you kind of already expect that. But trust me, they when they hit, they fucking hit. But yeah, that's the whole thing. But all I can say is that you better see this movie. If you don't see this movie, I'm coming after you. I'm coming after you in your sleep. But overall, yeah, I definitely think this is probably, for a comic book movie, I think this is better than The Dark Knight. As a film, that could be debatable on some cases, but this thing is visually stunning, though. Just overall, and yeah, I gotta admit, I think Snyder knocked it out the park with Terrio's script. I think they actually did a really good job on top of the flaws that I kind of said, which weren't too many, but overall, this may be too comic-y for some people. It's just that they gotta realize that it's a comic book film. it's going to be a little bit stupid. Because if you think this is stupid, then every premise of a comic book film should just be thrown out the window, because they're all a bit stupid. You just have to kind of leave your mind at the door for the most part of some cases. But this is a smart script. It actually touches on a couple of interesting things, and that's all I can really say about it without actually spoiling it. But trust me, you don't want to miss this shit, because, I'm coming for you. But yes, comment, subscribe, and like. I'm Chris Smith, and I'm signing out.